Good. Good evening, everyone. I would like to welcome you to the Ottawa Catholic School Board Business Meeting, Board of Trustees meeting for April 12, 2022. Before we start, I would like to have a special welcome, or offer a special welcome to Trustee Marty DeCamp at her first board meeting as a trustee. Welcome, Marty.
Thank you.
Sorry, I apologize. Welcome, Trustee DeCamp. Father, can you lead us in prayer, please? Sorry, Sarah, can you lead us with the land acknowledgement, please?
Yes. As we begin this meeting, we respectfully acknowledge that we are gathered on the ancestral lands and waters of the Algonquin people. We acknowledge their long-standing relationship with this territory, which remains unceded. We also pay respect to all Indigenous people in this region from all nations across Canada who call Ottawa home.
Thank you. Father, can you lead us in prayer, please?
In the name of the Father, and of the Son, of your image in each child. And so we pray. Root and ground us in faith, hope, and love. And we lift our hearts in gratitude for your holy blessings of our families, schools, church, and world. And so we pray. Fill us with your Spirit so that we may grow in community. Open us to the wisdom of your truth. Soften us to pour out kindness and compassion. You plant us in your garden to grow together in Catholic education. We are deeply committed to honoring this sacred trust. So unite us in one heart, mind, and soul as people of your family, so that we may abide with you in love as branches of the true vine, Jesus Christ. Amen. And please remember in your prayers the following persons who have passed away recently. Paul Trombley, husband of Sharon Trombley, former trustee of the Carleton Roman Catholic Separate School Board. George Korchesny, father of Vicky Lafontaine, executive assistant in the Student Success Elementary Department, and grandfather of Maria Fontaine Colley, early childhood educator at St. Rita School. Janet Robbins, mother of Maria Strafacci Dupont, vice principal at Blessed Carlo Virtual School. Lyle McCormick, father of Mark McCormick, elementary vice president, Ottawa Catholic Teachers. And Dennis O'Brien, father of Tracy Nasrella, teacher at St. Jerome School. And I would ask you also to remember in your prayers the people of Ukraine. So we also pray for our staff and students, extended family members, especially those who have lost their lives due to COVID-19. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. That's it, Mark.
Thank you. Please stand for O Canada. We have no delegations, no public sessions. Approval of the agenda. Can I have a mover, please? Trustee DeKemp? And a seconder, please? Trustee Coburn? That the agenda for the regular board meeting of April 12th, 2022 be approved as presented. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. School department, student department profile memo from the Associate Director of Education re the introduction of the new student trustees for 2022-2023. Associate Director Donahue, welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Although I would love to have the honor of introducing our two new student trustees for the next school year, I'm going to pass this honor on to our current student trustees. So I'll turn it over at this time to Sarah and Ben for the introductions.
Thank you, Ms. Donahue, and through you, Mr. Chair. Good evening, everyone. It's really great to see you all. So on February 24th, the Student Senate held a virtual election to select the two next student trustees of the Ottawa Catholic School Board. In the weeks leading up to the election, each co-president and their respective student council took really great initiative in ensuring that a greater scope of students at their school had the opportunity to know about and to attempt for the position. And so the election consisted of 14 candidates across the board who all presented a speech on what would make them suitable candidates for the role. And then through a process of elimination, the candidates were narrowed down through 2 rounds of interviewing. And at the end of the meeting, the Student Senate had elected the 2 new student trustees for the next school year, who are Sia and Sharu, and they're with us tonight. And so Sia is a grade 11 student. She attends Holy Trinity High School, and so I'll pass it over to her now.
Hi everyone, I'm Sia and I'll be in grade 12 next year and I'm from Holy Trinity. And first of all, I just want to say it's such an amazing opportunity to be here and I'm really grateful for it. And I'm this is beyond everything. And just a little bit more about me. So I am in the healthcare schism at my school. I'm taking the grade 12 course as of right now, and I would love to go into healthcare. I love the problem solving aspect of it and everything like that. And just throughout my high school career, I guess I've been able to participate in a lot of initiatives from the equity committee and stuff like that. So I've been able to lead fundraisers across multiple schools and lunch and learns across multiple schools, and I helped introduce Canva Pro to the board. So I just want to bring that sort of energy to the board level. And we've had a couple of very tumultuous past 2 years, and I want to make sure that this next year that we have is fun and enjoyable for everyone. So yeah, thank you very much.
Welcome, Sia.
I think Ben will introduce Sharu.
And next up, we have our second student trustee for the 2022-2023 school year, Sharu, who comes from our virtual high school, which I think will be the first student trustee we have from the virtual high school. Sharu is a student and through the election process has shown his maturity and his ability to really understand what a student trustee wish. And I have no doubt he'll be an amazing student trustee along with Sia for the next school year. This is not about me, so I'll give you the chance to you guys so Sharu to introduce himself. Go ahead, Sharu.
Yeah, so I just wanted to say thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I hope you're all doing well. My name is Sheriff Agent Colin, but I like to go by Sharu. I'm from St. Josephine, where I'll be going to grade 12 next year. I still can't believe that I'll be in grade 12 next year, but I'm really excited for life after high school. I think it'll definitely be a lot more different. I really like physics and find it very fascinating, and physics is something I'd like to do after high school. But ultimately, I'd like to do something where I can help as many people as I can. But just coming back to my grade 12 year, I'm really excited and very grateful to be one of the student trustees next year, especially after the past 2 years. And I just want to thank you for this opportunity, and I can't wait to start.
So sorry, Mr. Chair, I was just going to interject, and you'll see that we're in fine hands with our 2 new student trustees, and I'm sure that you will get to meet them in person next school year. And so we look forward to that. I just wanted to thank Sarah and Ben for explaining the process and for introducing our student trustees. And that's our presentation for today, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Yes, thank you, Ben and Sarah. And hopefully you can drop by the boardroom. The building on Hunt Club Road I could show the camera around, but we actually do have a boardroom, and I know your predecessors didn't get to come to visit us, but you've got to do it before the end of the term. And of course, I joke, but you're more than welcome to come and drop by the board office, both Sia and Shrew, before the end of the year and get a little bit climatized on where we do meet. And it has been, besides the swearing in of Trustee DeCamp, it's been 26 months since I sat at this table and had a board meeting. So it's very good to be back, and it'll be better when everybody's back and the virtual dies down, because the relationships that you make and the side conversations that you have before and after the meetings and the joking around and the camaraderie, that's worth incalculable when you're working as a team. So congratulations on getting elected and welcome to the team. And I'll open it up, trustees. Pardon me? I can't hear you.
Sarah has her hand up.
She had her hand up.
Sorry. Sarah, do you have a question?
I just wanted to mention that all four of us actually had the opportunity to visit the boardroom. Our last student senate meeting, which was, I believe it was early April or March, I kind of forget. But we had it in the boardroom, and it was a really great experience. And every co-president had the exact same thing to say, which it was really great to be in person. We finally got to meet each other. And so Sia and Shrew already have that experience. So it was a great opportunity for them. And I know I personally plan on attending the next board meeting in person. So we're excited for that.
Thank you. And you know, of course, I met with the rest of the 10 other trustees sitting at the table at the same time, so that you're welcome to be here. And we look forward to actually meeting you in person and having a meeting together. So open to questions or comments. Trustee Armstrong.
Through you, Mr. Chair. For Sheriff Ajan, the question is, you're a physics enthusiast. If Stephen Hawkins was across from you, what would you ask him?
Well, that's definitely a good question. I think I definitely ask him what he finds most interesting about the world, because there's so many things like in the world that I think are like unexplainable. So I want to see like what he thinks and like being able to see his perspective. So I just ask him about like what he thinks is the best thing about physics and the best thing about our world.
Welcome to the board.
Trustee Moore.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. Sia and Shrew, I am so impressed because I've never seen two people so happy as Ben and Sarah to give up their jobs. And you didn't look at all worried. Welcome to the team. We look forward to meeting you.
Are there any other questions? And anybody can help me out here if they see a hand raised, and possibly that the 18 that are in just one square at the bottom. There we go. So, Trustee Armstrong.
Through you, Mr. Chair. I have a question for Sia. If Madame Curry was sitting across from you, what would you ask her?
That's a very good question. I would think that, well, it's kind of curious for me that she, died from her own like kind of research and everything like that. So I would kind of ask her if it was worth it. Like, was that knowledge? Was it all worth it in the end, even though it may have led to her own demise? I guess that's what I would ask.
I'm really happy you know the name. Thank you.
Thank you for the question.
Thank you. Can I have a mover for the motion, please? Trustee Lawrence and Trustee Moore. And yes, you will have to remind me to take in all the, use my farsightedness as well as my nearsightedness. Moved by Trustee Lawrence, second by Trustee Moore, the memorandum from the Associate Director of Education dated April 6, 2022, entitled Introduction of Student Trustees 22-2023 be received. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Item G, declarations of conflict of interest. Trustee Moore?
For item K3, and I've submitted the papers to the manager of corporate affairs.
On which item?
K3.
K3. Have you supplied the secretariat with the appropriate form? Thank you. Confirmations of minutes of the regular board meeting of May 8th, 2022. Can I have a mover, please? Trustee Coburn and Trustee Warren. That the minutes of the regular board meeting of March 8th, 2022 be adopted as presented. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Confirmations in the minutes of the regular board meeting, the special board meeting, March 29, 2022. Mover, please. Trustee Coburn, Trustee Whittick. That the minutes of the special board meeting of March 29, 2022 be adopted as presented. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. There's no unfinished business from previous meetings. There's no trustee motions. Present item K1, presentation and consideration of committee reports, Committee of the Whole, April 12, 2022. Mr. Vice Chair?
Nothing to report, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Item K2, memo from the Superintendent of Special Education and Student Services, SEAC minutes of January 19, 2022. Welcome, Superintendent Benton.
Good evening, Mr. Chair. These minutes are for receipt.
Thank you. Can I have a mover, please? Trustee Armstrong and Trustee Lawrence. That the memorandum from the Superintendent of Special Education and Student Services dated April 5th, 2022, entitled Special Education Advisory Committee Minutes and dated January 19, 2022 be received. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Item 3, memo from Joanne McEwen, President, Chair of the Ottawa Transportation Authority. Read the Austin minutes of the regular session of meeting of January 24, 2022. Trustee McEwen.
They're for receipt, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. A mover, please. Trustee Whittick. Seconder. Trustee Warren. That the memorandum from Trustee Joanne McEwen dated April 5th, 2022, entitled Austin minutes of the regular session meeting of January 24, 2022 be received. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Item L1, presentation and consideration of staff and trustee reports, memo from the Superintendent of Continuing Community Education, Family Welcome Center, and Multicultural Liaison Officers. Superintendent Velati, Superintendent McCabe, and Janet Torres Rodriguez. Welcome.
Good evening, Mr. Chair. I should mention it's a different McCabe. It'll be Noel McCabe, one of our teachers from the Family Welcome Center. But Mr. Chair, it's a pleasure to be here this evening with Noel McCabe, as well as Janet Torres Rodriguez, who is a multicultural liaison officer with our school board. Each year, the OCSB welcomes many students from a number of different countries, and the work which goes into the process of the admissions, the academic assessment, and the support provided to students as well as families is truly exceptional. The students arriving to us through the Family Welcome Center enrich our schools, not just with their diversity, but also with the experiences and the life experiences that these families have received, and it's a benefit that they have for our schools as well as for our students. So I'll invite Noel McCabe to begin the presentation.
Yeah, I apologize that Ms. McCabe, Superintendent McCabe is sitting to my left here, and he was way a little bit of humor. We're back in boardroom, right?
Okay. Through you, Mr. Chair, good evening, and thank you for allowing me to speak this evening at your meeting to give an overview of the Family Welcome Center and to give an update on some of the trends that we have seen over the past few years. So at the Family Welcome Center, our goal is to provide our new students and families a supportive beginning and a smooth transition to our school system and to the community. We welcome families in a safe and caring environment, and we aim to lessen the anxiety that parents and their children often experience at this time. There is a set criteria as to determine which families are served by the center. Mostly we do see students who are coming from another country, newcomers to Canada. However, there are other criteria that you will see listed here. The process from beginning to end is as follows. So first, we assist the families with the registration, and that involves the verification of documents. And next, a teacher meets with the parents and the guardians and the children, and our multicultural liaison officer is introduced, and Janet is going to be talking to you more about this in a few moments. The teacher conducts the initial assessment, and this assessment is used to determine the level of English proficiency in order to see whether or not the student will require ESL support. Students who are deemed as English language learners are placed on STEP, and STEP refers to Steps to English Proficiency, and that is the framework that we use for identifying the level of proficiency and the literacy development. For high school students, the assessment determines whether the student would benefit from taking an ESL course, and also a math assessment is conducted to make a course recommendation for high school students. So the teacher provides feedback to the parents following the assessment and explains the model of support in the school. And then the final step for the teachers is to prepare a written report for the receiving schools so that relevant background information is shared, the STEP profile of the student is given at that time, and program and placement recommendations as well. So since the Family Welcome Center opened in February 2006, we've seen over 2,000 students, and this is coming from all over the world. And you'll see here the graph showing fairly steady growth over the years. We had a peak in the 2018-2019 year. And then subsequent years were impacted by the pandemic. And we are beginning to rebound from this. So you will see our current school year now has surpassed last year's total. So we welcome students from all different parts of the world. And so far this year, that has amounted to over 80 different countries. This chart, based on this year's data, shows the country of entry that our students arrived from. And countries with highest prevalence over the years include Nigeria, Lebanon, Brazil, India, and Philippines, to name a few. A quick look at languages now. So we have a wonderful representation of different languages in our schools. And the chart on the right here shows the 10 languages of highest prevalence over the past 3 years. Arabic, French, and Spanish consistently represent the top 3 languages. The pie chart on the left there shows the data for this year, and you will see that it closely mirrors the chart on the right. So far this year, we have seen students who speak roughly 60 different languages. So at this time, I would like to introduce you to Janet. Janet Torres Rodriguez is one of our multicultural liaison officers, and she's going to share information about the role of the MLO, what they do at the Family Welcome Center, and beyond in terms of the support they provide to schools and to families.
Good evening, everyone, and through you, Mr. Chair, my name is Janet, and we are 6 multicultural liaison officers supporting student families and staff in the Ottawa Catholic School Board. Our program is actually part of the Ottawa Community Immigrant Services Organization, and this is a partnership that was established back in 2008. So every school in the Ottawa Catholic School Board has an MLO assigned. We are assigned to families of schools, and we are mainly housed at the ESL centers. Our program primarily addresses the settlement and integration needs of refugee and immigrant students and their families to ensure a successful school experience for the kids and to help with the integration of the families in the community. So at the Family Welcome Center, our session, our part of the appointment, as I always tell the families, has two sections, which is the first one, which is the orientation into the school system, information about what is the routine every day, what are they to expect, especially in the case of the high school students that sometimes are very anxious because of the change and transitioning into such a different system. We share information with them in a way that will allow them to feel more confident and more secure when they go into the schools. And the second part of our appointment will be the settlement piece, in which we actually go in detail and address the primary needs of the family. And this differs from situation to situation, from the family status. So we really tailor the orientation that we provide to families according to their needs at the moment. Next, Noel. So we work with the students, we work with the parents, and we also work with the teachers at school. So we make sure that the students have access to the information, know how to navigate the system, overcome barriers that will come along the way. We provide them with an understanding of everything that's happening around them. We support parents in getting involved in the education of their children. We facilitate communication in any way that we can. We have interpreters that will support us in that process, or we'll do it ourselves as if it's the language that we speak. Conflict resolution, mediation, and with teachers and other school personnel, we will provide information about the needs of the students, especially because the teachers have them there in their classroom. So there may be information that will be beneficial in their learning. We will support communication again for the involvement of the parents and help in general to build the relationship between teachers and the families. Noel, next. So the process, the Family Welcome Center is like the port of entry for families that come into our board. So the process begins there, but it's only the beginning. There's always one of us at the Family Welcome Center to meet with the families. We pass the information along to the MLO, to the receiving MLO at the school, so that the family can continue to receive services according to their emerging needs. The settlement journey looks very different, again, from one family to the other, one culture to the other, depending on the support system that the family has here in Canada. Sometimes it's a matter of months, sometimes it may take years and years for the family to settle entirely into the new environment. Thank you very much again for this opportunity to be here with you.
Looking ahead, Canada is expected to see a record number of new permanent residents over the next 3 years. And this is in part due to the backlog caused by the pandemic. So as targets rise, we expect to see a steady growth in the number of newcomers to our schools. We also anticipate seeing continuing to see families fleeing crisis situations such as the Afghan resettlement effort underway and the current situation, of course, in Ukraine, to name a few. So, Mr. Chair, this concludes our presentation. I thank you for your time, and we would be happy to answer any questions the Board of Trustees may have.
And Mr. Chair, maybe I'll ask Noel to stop presenting at this point, and absolutely, if there's any questions that we can assist with, we'd be happy to.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Noel, and thank you, Janet, for your presentation. Trustee Armstrong, and then Student Trustee Sarah.
Through you, Mr. Chair. My question is the information, you had many items there. I was wondering if you pass along any information on civics so that newcomers have a better understanding of the democratic process in Canada?
So if I may, Mr. Chair, so some of that really rests on the role of what our multicultural liaison officer does. So part of the role of, and Janet's role in this situation, but with our MLOs, is not just the linkages of families with the school, but also what is happening in the community, what resources are available, what supports are available. And so it goes beyond our school. It's having them settle within the Ottawa community. I did see Janet put up her hand, so she may want to add a little bit to that, but we do provide that information to families as well as part of the support of and welcoming to the city of Ottawa.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Janet.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Absolutely, I couldn't have explained it in a better way. Thank you, Ben. Yes, absolutely, we do explain about civics in the process. It's just not the first thing that we explain when families come, because sometimes there are so many needs that we will give priority to those. But definitely along the way, when families are better settled, those questions arise, and then we go into more detail. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sarah?
Through you, Mr. Chair, thank you very much for the presentation. I wanted to ask if the multicultural liaison officers have or take the opportunity to connect with students that are enrolled in the family welcome centers once they've been at their new schools for a few months or years, just to kind of welcome any feedback or see how the program has helped them, just what kind of reconnection there might be with previously enrolled students.
Through you, Mr. Chair?
Go ahead.
We do. Yes, we do. So we build a relationship with families sometimes with only one meeting. Because we have so many schools, so we don't have individual schools, we have families of schools. The process that we follow is to transition the family to the MLO who's actually at the school, but sometimes many years after we have met a family, we hear from them. Sometimes they thank us, and they value so much the interaction because of the aspects that have been improved and how things have gone, that yes, absolutely, yes. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Trustee McEwen.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair. I'm just wondering, any of you can answer this. It's just a general question. I know the last 2 years have been very difficult, and I'm just wondering if there was one real challenge that the Welcome Center had to meet, and also one thing that they now will do differently because of the pandemic.
Mr. Chair, how about I allow Noel to answer that question?
Go ahead, Noel.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, that's an excellent question. Like everyone, yes, we did have to adapt. And yes, there were challenges and there were many successes too. As far as the challenges, at the beginning was that unknown. So I'm talking when March 2020, when we thought we were facing a 2-week pause in how we were going to do things. And then of course, over time, this ongoing thing. So in the beginning, the biggest challenge I would say would be getting all of our assessment tools that we were used to doing in person and putting them into a digital format. And it did mean actually transforming our whole assessment material from grade 1 to grade 12. So that was one of the initial challenges. But I have to say that now that we've done that work, we're benefiting from all the advantages and successes of actually having that virtual option. So that's what I say. What would we continue to do? It is really nice for many of our families and the convenience of their home to meet with us. At first I thought, oh, it's just not the same face to face, but it's amazing how comfortable people are to be in their home and meet with us. We don't spend any less time with them. I can't say that we're any less, thorough. We do everything that we would aim to do in person. So I have to say that is something we've learned, is that it can be done in different ways. And so, so it's been a very positive thing overall.
Trustee Whitted?
Thank you, Chair. Through you to Superintendent Belatti. First of all, just want to commend your department and how you've responded to a number of these recent influx sort of geopolitical situations and students sort of coming here in larger droves. It's, it's hearing very positive things in our community about how they're being welcomed into our board. So thank you for that. Previously, when we've welcomed Afghan refugees and we had the larger influx of Syrian refugees, I think, Ben, you gave us a bit of an update on how your staff would respond and maybe tool up for those larger increases. Can you give us a sense of how that might work now, given we're likely to see a larger number of Ukrainian refugees coming to places like Ottawa or the GTA? So could you give us a sense of kind of what that might look like on the ground if you add extra staff temporarily or prepare a more aggressive outreach program?
Through you, Mr. Chair. And so thank you very much for the feedback. We do have a staff that I will say will turn on a dime or pivot in terms of preparing for new students. The three groups that you've mentioned in terms of originally the Syrian group and then the individuals from Afghanistan and now possibly from the Ukraine, the pathway is actually different for each. It's without getting into too many details, it's not as straightforward for each of the group, depending on where the preparation is being done. And what I mean by that is the paperwork. That where the paperwork is completed actually changes the entry process into Canada. It dictates how quickly we can launch a family into registering into a school, as well as setting families up for a place to live and for employment purposes. So with the Afghan group, the country has committed to 40,000, and we're approximately in Canada between 10 and 11,000. So we still have a ways to go. We're finding that group is not coming in as large of a concentration or an influx as we've seen with the Syrian group. We are absolutely preparing, and I would say very much prepared for students and families coming from the Ukraine. The federal government and provincial government has done a lot to remove some barriers for them in terms of the paperwork and allowing them for settlement. And as I said, to help with them being launched. In terms of within our school, Mr. Chair, our school board, one of the things we've already begun is looking at the entry process for some of the families and students who have experienced trauma. So we're working with our student services department to look at what is our current time from a family that when they register to when we can initiate potential supports from our psychology staff or our social work staff, and looking at that time and actually trying to reduce that lag, if you will. And how is it that we can be reaching out to support the schools and the students? And obviously the role of the teachers in the Family Welcome Center and our Multicultural Liaison officers are going to be key. So we have a strong connection with other departments, and that's what I think is going to be key to the success for our students.
Trustee Moore?
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair. I am looking right now at the slide of where all the different countries that our new students are coming from, and it truly is around the world, all the continents. And many of these children are coming from countries that are not at war. They're coming from a school system in those countries. What have they taught you about what we could be doing better here? Because you have an eye on the world from the parents and the children that we don't often see.
Through you, Mr. Chair, that's a very good point that the trustee brings up. And we have to keep in mind that while we have individuals coming to us that require some additional support, we have many that are coming for other purposes. Families of diplomats, families coming for employment purposes. And so their transition to the city and into the school system is very different. That's where the diversity comes in. And what are their life experiences and knowledge that they can provide to our schools? And when I say our schools, I don't just refer to student interaction. I'm also referring to student-staff interaction outside into the larger school community and what it does for our city overall. With the immigration numbers dramatically increasing over the next number of years, how we support and learn from others is going to be critical because we have a lot to learn from them and they have a lot to learn from us. And it's that reciprocal relationship, if you will, reciprocal learning that is just going to make not just our schools stronger and much more thriving, it's going to make Ottawa a much more of a thriving city.
Thank you. Is there any other questions or comments? Trustee Lawrence.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. Just a comment, that was an excellent presentation. Thank you very, very much.
Trustee Armstrong.
Through you, Mr. Chair. With the Ukrainian immigration, a lot of them have been approved, but they are in a waiting situation where they're not so sure whether they should come now or see what happens. So they're kind of waiting on the other side. Have we encountered any of those situations where we're expecting the students and we've prepared for them to be here, but they're in a wait and see? Have we encountered that scenario?
Oh, so Mr. Chair, I've seen Noelle has a couple of comments about that. I'll turn it over to her.
Go ahead, Noelle.
Sorry.
Yeah. Mute.
I'm sorry. Through you, Mr. Chair. I can tell you what we've seen so far with our Ukrainian families. For the last 2 weeks, they have been coming in, and we've seen almost every day a new family. But what I've noticed is the pattern so far has been that they've come with family already here. So because Ottawa does have a large Ukrainian community, what is very nice for the families so far that have been able to come and have arrived, they tend to be living with relatives. And yes, you're absolutely right. There is an unknown, and they really do not know how long they're going to be here for. They are hopeful, of course, to return to the Ukraine. They all want to return, so they do see this as temporary. But of course, there are so many unknown factors, and I'm sure they're very well aware of that. But as of now, luckily, they do have the support of some family. That's what we've seen so far. That is not going to continue to be the case as it, other organizations start to reach out and host families and find new homes for them. But so far, the ones that have arrived are living with some kind of relative in the community.
Just to follow up, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
My understanding is that there could be some that have been admitted but are waiting on the other side, haven't come. And so I'm just wondering if we have encountered that where we were expecting some students to come, some families to come, but they are in kind of a stasis on the other side, if we've encountered that. Thank you.
Go ahead, Noah.
Through you, Mr. Chair. What I can say about that is that we do have a number that have flight information, and we do have them on our list of pending families that we are waiting for them to arrive, and they do have very specific dates that they're expected to come. But as far as whether some have or will be delayed, that I can't say for sure at this moment.
Thank you.
Is there any other questions or comments? Seeing none, thank you very much, ladies, for your presentation. Thank you, Ben. Can I have a mover for the presentation, please? Trustee Lawrence and Trustee McEwen. That the memorandum from the Superintendent of Continuing and Community Education dated April 5th, 2022, entitled Family Welcome Center and Multicultural Liaison Officers 2022 be received. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Item 2, memo from the Superintendent of Student Success Elementary and Superintendent of Student Success Intermediate Secondary. OCSB Stream Week highlights. Welcome, Superintendent Montgomery, Superintendent Kelly, Netta and Yolanda, welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We are pleased to have Netta Bernabo, Experiential Learning Consultant, and Yolanda Kravietsky, Science and Technology Consultant Elementary, join us to share the highlights of a very successful STEAM Week that was held between February 29th and March 4th. And I'd invite them at this time to present to our group.
Thank you very much. Can we move on to slide 2, please? Good evening. Yolanda and I are thrilled to speak with you about OCSB STEAM Week. Last year was such a success that we decided to continue this board-wide event this year. Events like STEAM Week promote students' career exploration throughout the year, particularly as high school students make their course selections at the end of February, beginning of March. STEAM Week also provided our specialist high skills major students with reach ahead, experiential learning, and career exploration component requirements for their program. We wanted to create a fun and engaging week for all K-12 students and educators as they explored deep learning STEAM-based activities. Next slide, please. To achieve this, we knew that we needed to provide incentives for our educators and parents to participate. So prizes were distributed throughout the week. As experienced last year, we decided that each of the 5 days of the week would focus on a specific theme, following the subjects of STEAM, as you can see on the slide. Our K-12 consultants worked diligently to create our resource documents with activity ideas. We knew that we wanted to be respectful of February being Black History Month, so documents and resources included activities that were meaningfully linked to the month, as Black history doesn't sit apart from STEAM. The two build upon and reinforce the combined importance of each other. The contributions of Black scientists, engineers, technologists, artists, and mathematicians plays an important part in our past and advancement for the future. We curated a list of activities that related to Black History Month, such as people and events to learn about, and read out loud stories with Black scientists and engineer main characters. We also kicked off STEAM Week partnering with the Canadian Black Scientists Network and presented an amazing STEAM career panel. Next slide, please. This year, we hosted 32 diverse live events that educators could register for. We organized the website to include a live events calendar seen on the next slide, so teachers could easily see what was available each day of the week and not miss out. We had 4 different career panels, coding events, guides connected daily lessons taught by an expert in the field, animation workshops, Indigenous speaker, who is a writer, artist, TV producer, Jay Ojic, and a careers presentation for parents by Joel Hilchey, talking about career planning during wild times. There was literally something for everyone. Next slide, please. Here is the event calendar I was referring to. This was posted on the hashtag OCSB STEAM Week website. As you can see, all grade levels had something to sign up for. Yolanda will tell you more about our various community partners. Next slide.
Thanks, Netta. We've partnered with many organizations to promote a wide range of activities for all grade levels. Consultants collaborated with these educational organizations to mold the programming and personalize the content for our students. This was a fantastic opportunity to show educators the resources that are available to them and how to connect their curriculum to STEAM. This collaboration between our partners and OCSB could be seen publicly and has highlighted OCSB as an innovative and collaborative district in Ontario. Next slide, please. To encourage participation throughout the week, we had a variety of challenges where educators could showcase STEAM activities in action. The propeller car kits were also provided for all grade 4 students at in-person schools. Students had a great time building the cars and measuring how far they could go in the hallway or classroom. There was phenomenal uptake from the week. We were thrilled to see STEAM occurring in schools and classrooms across the system. Next slide, please. Here you can see a small sampling of tweets, but I'd also would like to take the time to share some feedback that we received. From a parent, I quote, "Thank you for organizing such a great speaker," and they're referring to Joel Hilchey. From an educator, I quote, "I love that there are multiple entry points so that all students feel they can contribute. The students enjoyed the hands-on activities as well." From a student, I quote, "As a high school student, I enjoyed the On-Fee STEAM career panel. I enjoyed getting to hear everyone's different stories and all their different backgrounds. I found that this panel wasn't boring like other panels we've had at school. It was more captivating. I also really enjoyed listening to the advice that each panelist gave to their grade 12 selves and how most of them said to try new things and programs, even if you don't like yours, and not to be scared. I think the advice that they gave, especially Emma's, was really helpful because I find as a high school student that even thinking about university is very stressful and that I have to pick the right career path and be wasting money and time trying new things. But now I know that it's okay to not know what you want to be yet, and that there's still a lot of time to choose." Next slide, please. Our team worked with our wonderful office administrator, Michelle Sherwin, to create a website to allow for a one-stop shop for educators and administrators to access all of the resources for STEAM Week. We had several requests to keep the website active and to post all the recordings of live events. This will become a valuable resource for our teachers as it supports the main focus of STEM within the new Ontario Science and Technology curriculum, which is being implemented in September. Next slide, please. In order to make this a successful event, it required tremendous amount of team effort. The organization and planning of the OCSB STEAM Week was supported by several departments at the system level. We are also grateful to the school admin teams for promoting the week and the events with their community. We thank our educators for their enthusiasm and participation in all of the events, bringing a STEAM focus to the forefront of their week's activities. Next slide. And that's it, actually. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, ladies. Trustee Armstrong.
For you, Chair, projecting ahead with the new science curriculum, how would you see the STEAM week look? Would it look differently next year, taking that into account?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I'd like to answer that question. Honestly, I think we wouldn't change much at all. We might add a few other things to enhance, like we always add every year. But I feel that OCSB has always been ahead of the game, and we were anticipating the new curriculum coming, and we were always finding a diverse way to hit STEAM. So we always had perspective of religion. We always had our Indigenous focus. We always had environmental ed, coding especially, which is a huge part of the new curriculum. And the engineering design process is also part of the new curriculum, and that's something that our STEAM Week focus has been. So if anything, I think we'll just probably add a few more exciting new initiatives and activities for our teachers, but otherwise, I feel that we're prepared for the new science curriculum, and STEAM Week just supports that as well.
Thank you.
Sarah?
Through you, Mr. Chair, thank you very much for the presentation. I just wanted to ask if in the future the board might have any plans to run programs specialized to engaging girls in STEAM weeks, just because I know as someone who's participated in a lot of girl-oriented STEAM sort of initiatives, it really raises confidence and it changes the atmosphere to learn. So if there might be any focus on that in the future.
Through you, Mr. Chair, the answer to Sarah's question, if you don't mind, is yes, absolutely. And Sarah, if you take a look at the presentation. In one of the photos, there's even a picture of a Holy Trinity Women in STEAM Club. And they call themselves that. And as you can see, they're wearing our STEAM t-shirts. We sent them t-shirts. We were so excited that this club started this year. They meet once a week, and they run many different STEAM-based activities at school. And they have also many different guest speakers into their meetings. If I hope I'm not incorrect by saying I think Sia is also on that team. And so they're just a wonderful group of young women that really even took the initiative to get this club started at Holy Trinity. And that's just one example. And so what we're seeing now is more and more of these clubs starting at different schools. And whatever we can do at the board level to support that, we will.
That's great. Thank you so much.
Is there any other questions or comments? Seeing none. Thank you very much, ladies, for your presentation. Can I have a mover, please? Trustee Moore and Trustee Whitted. That the memorandum from the Superintendent of Student Success dated April 4th, 2022, entitled OCSB STEAM Week Highlights be received. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you again, ladies. Item 3, memo from the Superintendent of Student Success Elementary, lead EC role. Welcome, Superintendent Montgomery, and Stephanie, welcome.
Thank you. So through you, Mr. Chair, I am very pleased tonight to welcome Stephanie McIntyre, our very first lead early child educator at the OCSB. She has only been in the role since September, and not only has she been applauded at many schools already this year, but she has been a valuable voice around our elementary student success table when it comes to all things elementary and all things kindergarten in particular. I'm so excited to introduce Ms. McIntyre, who will share highlights of her new role. So I will pass it over to Ms. McIntyre at this time.
Through you, Mr. Chair, thank you very much for having me tonight. The Ontario Kindergarten Program document states that the kindergarten program is a child-centered, developmentally appropriate, integrated program of early learning for 4- and 5-year-old children. The purpose of this program is to establish a strong foundation for learning in the early years, and to do so in a safe and caring, play-based environment that promotes the physical, social, emotional, and cognitive development of all children. As part of the Elementary Student Success Department, I support the Ottawa Catholic School Board kindergarten program from a registered early childhood educator perspective. In the next few minutes, I will be sharing the 4 main ways as the lead early childhood educator that I contribute to establishing that strong foundation for learning that OCSB offers. Next slide, please. The first way is through the development and promotion of professional learning opportunities and resources. In collaboration with the coordinator, consultants, and learning partners of elementary student success, I develop and facilitate professional learning for kindergarten educator teams and administrators regarding the effective pedagogical practices and the development of student global competencies. These learning opportunities are often offered in a variety of ways: through self-guided professional development modules, large group virtual learning sessions, and/or small group in-person or virtual sessions. They also cover a variety of topics, from how to utilize learning resources such as Haggerty, which is a literacy-based program used in kindergarten, to supporting deep learning during block play. In coordination with the team, I create monthly newsletters that encourage educators to dig deeper, stretch their thinking, and discover what other early learning professionals have to say on a variety of topics. Some of the themes we have covered this year are French as a second language in kindergarten, risky play, planning invitations to play, and provocations for learning. To ensure that educators know where and how to access professional learning opportunities, I again collaborate with the Elementary Student Success Department, highlighting the information through a variety of platforms, such as Twitter, Educator updates, and the staff portal. As well, we are working on an OCSB kindergarten educator website. I'm also part of an asynchronous learning team that provides asynchronous activities to the Educator of Blessed Carlo Virtual School. These activities were also used to support educators during the switch to online learning. Next slide, please. An important aspect of my role is contributing to the many partnerships that help make our kindergarten program successful. When I first joined the Elementary Student Success team, I was surprised by how many different OCSB departments I had the opportunity to collaborate with. From communications, leading and learning, student services, to planning and facilities, and many, many more. It really does take a village. I supported the kindergarten campaign by participating in the Ottawa Public Health Parenting in Ottawa Just Ask series, and contributed to the very first virtual public OCSB Welcome to Kindergarten Night, where we addressed parents' top 10 kindergarten questions. I participate in early years leadership sessions, both regionally and provincially. This is where leadership from different school boards in the ministry share ideas, new learning, and challenges. As well, the coordinator of Elementary Student Success and I collaborated with the Ottawa Catholic Childcare Corporation and facilitated additional fun learning opportunities to support kindergarten families during remote learning. Educators from the Extended Day program offered daily before and after school virtual sessions full of songs, stories, and games. We also partner with Roots of Empathy to support training OCSB educators to become root instructors and implement the program in our kindergarten classrooms. For those of you who are not familiar with Roots of Empathy, it's an international program that was developed in Toronto in the 1960s and teaches emotional literacy and responsible citizenship through coaching children to recognize and connect with the vulnerability and humanity of a baby who visits their classroom throughout the year with their parents. Next slide, please. One of the largest and most rewarding aspects of my role is supporting kindergarten educator teams directly. Educators or administrators can request support, and as the lead early childhood educator, I either provide resources to meet their needs or act as a resource using a student-centered coaching model. With this model, I partner with educators and teams, spending time in the classroom, co-teaching, co-documenting, co-planning, and co-assessing. I use student observations and the kindergarten program document to provide feedback and recommendations around pedagogy and relationship building, and then together we develop next steps. Sometimes support is recommended by other learning partners, NTIP, or an itinerant resource teacher. And in those circumstances, we all work collaboratively with the educators towards growth. An indirect way that I support educators is to ensure that they have access to resources and learning materials to create stimulating learning environments that align with deep learning. Next slide, please. The Ottawa Catholic School Board kindergarten program is the poster child for deep learning. And in my role, I continue to foster the development of authentic learning experiences by using our deep learning framework in my approach to student-centered coaching. I ensure that I am using a deep learning lens when creating professional learning experiences, and I use deep learning language while co-teaching and providing feedback. I've also partnered with the OCSB Equity, Diversity, and Indigenous consultants to create and plan the implementation of a social emotional learning program that supports the OCSB Equity Framework. Next slide, please. I'm very proud to be in the role of lead early childhood educator and to be part of an organization that is so supportive and innovative. This role helps early childhood educators feel visible and vital. The feedback from educator teams and administrators has been very positive, and I have seen the results that the combination of direct and indirect support can make. An example of this is a class I received requests for support from. The educators were experiencing some challenges engaging the children in meaningful play. They had been working with an itinerant resource teacher, and she suggested that they reach out to ESSD for additional support. Using both the professional learning modules for kindergarten that had been developed this year and a student-centered coaching model, the team was able to reflect on the needs of the children. They made adjustments to the environment, flow of the day, and how they planned, putting a focus on social emotional learning and building a classroom community. Now, when you enter the classroom, you can see every child engaged in deep learning through play, and while they still experience challenging moments, as we all do, both the educators and the children know to take deep breaths and say, "We can handle this." And they then use the challenges as learning opportunities. The growth that can be seen in this classroom is so inspiring. Next slide, please. My goals for the 2022-2023 school year are to be a resource for educators as they support the recommendations from the Right to Read report, to continue to build capacity by visiting and introducing myself to as many kindergarten teams as possible, to continue to develop strong partnerships with other departments in order to provide the best support possible to educators, and to continue my own professional learning journey with a focus on team building, development skills, conflict resolution skills. As well, I am confirmed to attend a 7-day conscious discipline training institute over the summer to deepen my knowledge of effective methods for teaching self-regulation and emotional learning. And that is a summary of my year to date as the very first lead early childhood educator. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Stephanie, for your presentation. Questions or comments? Trustee Lawrence.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. Stephanie, I'm delighted that we have someone in your position now, in your role. I went to a couple of meetings of the Child Care Corporation, and an ECE presented the program that she does. And I was absolutely blown away by the learning that was taking place in these classes. So I wish you all the best, and thank you. I look forward to hearing more about the program. Take care.
Trustee Simpson.
First of all, wow, that was a great presentation, and it gave us all some insight into how you spend your days. What I would like to ask is, and I'm delighted to hear that you're going to a conference on conscious discipline. So often some of our little kindergartens have trouble transitioning into grade 1, and I was wondering if you have any thoughts about helping grade 1 teachers understand some of the routines and things like conscious discipline that happen in kindergarten, and how we can transition that model into grade 1 classrooms.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Thank you. That's a great question. I think that that is happening slowly through the school. I've seen in some grade 1 classrooms, they're partnering with kindergarten teams to incorporate, especially in September, some play-based learning into the classroom to help with that transition. As well as the kindergarten students are leaving kindergarten, kindergarten educators try to do an orientation so that they meet the teachers, they have an idea of what the classroom looks like. I would love to bring your question forward and get feedback from the team, and consider and reflect on that suggestion.
Trustee Armstrong, then Trustee DeKemp.
Through you, Mr. Chair. What can we do? I know it's kindergarten, but what can we do early on here to, or what are we doing, or what can we do to encourage and make sure that in future we see more of our young people filling our churches? Thank you.
Through you, Mr. Chair. That's not an area that I prepared for this presentation tonight, so I'm not able to answer that question at this time. But thank you. I will also bring that back to our team to consider and reflect on.
Okay.
And I will add through you, Mr. Chair, to that we do follow in kindergarten, and Ms. McIntyre would be able to attest to this more than myself, but we obviously our religious ed program that they teach in kindergarten and follow, and in terms of our daily activities in the classroom, we're a faith-based classroom, and they do all the prayers and all. It's a very exciting religious education program in kindergarten, probably beyond any other class in the system, to be honest. It's very fun. And so in terms of encouraging them to go to church, that's often done through the school and as a whole. But it is a great question, and we will consider that question with our newsletters, that sort of thing. But it often happens through our school newsletters, where all church they collaborate with the parish in terms of news that is sent home in terms of attending Mass. So thank you.
Okay.
Trustee DeCamp.
Through you, Mr. Chair, to Stephanie, I wondered, in your presentation, you mentioned supporting the recommendations of the right to read, and I wonder what that looks like at the level you're operating at.
Through you, Mr. Chair, thank you. Right now, the kindergarten program is using a phonemic awareness program called Haggerty, and it's very effective at preparing children for reading in grade 1. It's a scientifically based program, and it's a program that the board piloted last year. And this year it has been implemented in all kindergarten classrooms throughout the board.
Thank you.
Trustee Simpson.
I do have a question and a comment. First of all, I think we all need to be mindful of the saying that everything I needed to learn in life, I learned in kindergarten. I don't know if that's exactly how it goes, but I think our kindergarten programs are so rich that it's very apt, and you've just pointed that out to us. My question is, these youngsters have been very isolated due to COVID, and I know that already we find children come to kindergarten without knowing initial consonants, never having to held a pencil or scissors, and I'm just wondering what kind of things you're doing to try and heighten their exposure to things that they've missed in the last couple of years.
Through you, Mr. Chair, thank you. That's a great question. And we have seen, especially in this year, that children are coming to school at a different preparation level than they have been in previous years. The great thing is that at this age, exposure to being in school and exposure to things like having opportunities to draw and write and create beautiful art, use Play-Doh, Lego, the children catch up quickly. The first few months, of course, kindergarten can be very overwhelming, especially for children who have maybe spent a lot of time during COVID in small groups. So the focus, especially at the beginning of the year, is always social emotional learning and making sure that they like being at school and that they feel safe. But again, their brains are so elastic at this time that the learning is unbelievable, and they really quickly are able to get to a place that is developmentally appropriate.
Is there any other questions or comments? Seeing none, thanks very much, Stephanie, for your presentation. Can I have a mover, please? Trustee Armstrong and Trustee Coburn. that the memorandum from the Superintendent of Student Success Elementary dated April 5th, 2022, entitled Lead ECE Program be received. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Item 4, memo from the Superintendent of Student Success Elementary and Superintendent of Student Success Intermediate Secondary. Welcome back, Superintendent Montgomery and Kelly.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So Superintendent Kelly and I are pleased to share with you tonight the initial plan we have made in collaboration with a variety of departments for the tutoring funds we have received. We have been planning a number of delivery models to address student needs at each school. So if we can go to the second slide, that would be wonderful. Thank you. The plan includes literacy, numeracy, French, and special education. We are also able to partner with local community organizations with this funding, which we have done. Like so many other initiatives, these plans have had to be made very quickly due to tight timelines, and some of these plans we are still in part proposed plans. So they're still proposed plans. Though an ambitious plan that we feel will address the needs of K-12 students, we acknowledge the challenge of staffing shortages. However, we feel optimistic that we have maximized all opportunities to attract current staff and external candidates to consider these opportunities. I would also like to acknowledge Debbie Frendo, a well-known retired superintendent who we have contracted to help support this program. She has already put in hours to help get these programs off the ground. The purpose of this funding is to support learning recovery due to the pandemic in 2 different phases. We have a healthy amount of funds to spend between now and August 31st, and then phase 2 includes another pocket of funds to be spent between September and December 2022. In this slide, you will note some of the criteria we have to work with: small group settings, before and after school programs, in-class support, and community partners. At this point, I will pass it along to my colleague, Superintendent Kelly, who will explain how we are working to meet these criteria. Next slide, please.
Thank you. And to provide you with an overview of the programs that we're looking at based on the ability of the board to attract individuals to the various positions, we're looking at a literacy program that'll span both our elementary, intermediate, and secondary panels. And that would be offered both during the day and after school. And right now our goal for this program is to have a tutor in each school supporting that programming. Mathematics at the elementary level, again, offering a program both during the day and after school with the focus on math up games and activities, Zorbits, as well as coding activities. At the intermediate secondary level, again, in the area of mathematics, we'd be looking at tutoring and supporting students at the grades 7 and 8 panel during the day, as well as providing after-school tutoring for our high school students. And that would be specific to some higher-end math courses that we can support. We also provide French programming, both through the elementary, intermediate, and secondary programming. That would be offered during the day as well as after school. And given the difficulty sometimes it is finding French qualified individuals to support students, we would also look at a virtual program here, bringing groups of students together virtually. And finally, providing opportunities for special education students. And that would be a combination of approaches based again on the number of tutors that we have and then the students that we're able to support. And I'll pass things back to Superintendent Montgomery. And next slide, please.
So thank you. So as you can see on this slide, we are pleased to say that we have already committed to some community partners. Jacques Conbit provides support explicitly for Black students. In addition, we have partnered with the Ottawa Network for Education, who are collaborating with all 4 school boards to help us recruit tutors in general. We have also partnered with Canadian Parents for French, who will be offering French tutoring for our students. In addition, we have a number of meetings set up over the next few weeks to explore partnerships throughout the city. So with all this said, what are our next steps? So we are currently exploring partnerships with community houses at 10 different sites. We have postings for all of these positions that Superintendent Kelly mentioned. They went out just this last Friday and over the weekend. And then we have to obviously select tutors for all of these programs. We have to train and orient the tutors to be able to deliver the programs. And we're also planning, because the funding goes from now until August 31st, some summer programs to help enhance some of the wonderful programs that are offered in continuing education and also to offer additional programs this year. So given that this is a fairly new initiative, we are really pleased with what we have come up with so far and feel optimistic about how we're going to be able to support our students. And with that, at this time, we're happy to answer any questions you might have. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Trustee Moore, then Trustee Woodard, then Trustee Goldberg.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Through you to our presenters. My question is kept saying qualified candidates, and I'm assuming you mean certified teachers, and I'm assuming we're waiting for vulnerable sector checks as well on all of them. And then a further question is right now, as we're in a wave of COVID and we're having staffing issues, are we taking them then as unqualified supervisors of classrooms if required when they're in the school?
Through you, Mr. Chair, it's a great consideration in terms of the different individuals we've reached out to, and we have invited application from all of those different groups. We're looking at providing different opportunities with qualified teachers, employing some of our unqualified individuals who have been helping us during challenging times around finding occasional teachers. We've reached out to faculties of education to enlist the assistance of some of those individuals who will be available shortly to help at the end of their programming. So we're looking at all of these different individuals, and certainly the qualifications that they would need in a school would also stand for the qualifications and certification they would need as tutors in our programs.
Trustee Woodard.
Thank you, Chair. Through you to Superintendent Montgomery. Just a question around the partnerships, and what is the criteria that we have defined in order to enter into partnerships with some of these community organizations? And further to that, have we thought about centering those partnerships around some of our children's support schools so that we've, embarked on partnerships in neighborhoods where, the greatest needs exist?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair, that's a great question. So we're lucky in this, with the criteria the ministry provided in terms of community partnerships. They're strongly encouraging it, and there's no limit really on the funding provided to be able to reach out to these community partners. So given that, we have Debbie Frendo, as we mentioned, who we've contracted, has a number of meetings coming up with a variety of different community groups to be able to see what they have to offer for us. In addition, ONFI, as I mentioned earlier, they're also reaching out to different community partners that can help support not just our board, but all 4 boards, because we've all received this funding. But yes, in terms of even locally and with our community partners, we are focused on looking at the data. Where do students need this funding the most, and how can we support that and get the people there to support the programs? So what's great about the community partnerships is a lot of them already have this already set up in terms of like Jacques' program that's already established. So we can provide a contract with him, partner with him, and then he already has, they already have it all set up through their organization. So that's a long way of saying that, yes, we are looking at that for sure. And for example, our math programs, we're focusing mainly on the children's support schools, and then about 6 other schools beyond that based on data. So yes, so we are working with this great criteria we have where we can reach out to a number of different community partners and really enhance our programs for all of our schools, in particular the ones who need these partnerships the most. So it's excellent.
Great, thank you.
Trustee Coburn.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair. I think you may have answered it with Jeremy's question, but it's how are we identifying the students that need the tutoring? I think it's a good program. I think the timelines are very tight. So if we've got to hire people, engage them in this to use up the funding by the end of December, I think the timelines are tight. So how are we identifying the students and or the schools that will be the recipients of this.
Through you, Mr. Chair, we've identified really all of our schools as potential sites for tutoring. So we've reached out to principals, let them know the scope of what we're looking at. And we are relying on the feedback from principals, teaching staff to identify these individuals. So they will be identified locally at the school level and provided with the programming based on the feedback that we have from school administrators, guidance counselors, resource teachers. So we're really taking our cue from the feedback that we have from the schools. They're able to identify the groups of students. And so it's certainly a localized decision-making in terms of who is being included in the process.
Trustee Moore, then Trustee Armstrong.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. I was wondering if you could just let me know the role of the parents in this. It seems very much as though the parents may not even be told their child is being in tutoring if they're in the elementary grades. I'm assuming I'm wrong here. And if CSPA has at all had any input in how you're doing this? I know everything's come together so fast.
Through you, Mr. Chair, that's an excellent question as well. So because especially our local programs that we're offering are before and after school, and our during the day programs, that will all be communicated with the parents. Everything that's, if their child's involved in any of these programs, the parent, through their own principal in particular, or resource teacher or classroom teacher, this will be communicated through them. So it's a very large initiative. However, we will be counting on the principals in each of their own schools to be able to communicate how this is being delivered within their schools. So yeah, so the parents will definitely be aware of what's being offered to their students, or excuse me, to their children. And so that's essentially, in terms of CSPA, we will be collaborating and talking with them about this for sure, especially as we move into the summer. We actually just had a meeting this morning and talked about that to see where the need is in terms of our summer programs. So thank you.
Trustee Armstrong, then Trustee Simpson.
Through you, Mr. Chair. I know that there are other countries that rolled out such initiatives earlier than we did. Have we reached out to some of these countries to learn from their experience and then draw those experiences in our rollout? Thank you.
And through you, Mr. Chair, we've been looking at some more localized partnerships around this. We've certainly reached out to other boards in our community. I've had the opportunity to reach out with student success leads across the eastern part of the province to gauge where they're coming from. So certainly we're looking at having discussions with like boards, given that we're all operating under the same expectations of the ministry. So there's been a great opportunity to exchange ideas, to share different types of programming. So we have reached out, maybe not quite to that extent beyond our national border, but we've had a great opportunity to share and exchange ideas within the province.
Just a follow-up, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
Just wondering, when you're reaching out, was there anything in any particular growing pains? Can you identify one that they've had so we can have an idea?
I would suggest the process of inviting people to apply. There's a lot of considerations there. We had a great opportunity to share our process with some of the other boards in terms of reaching out to the different unions, associations ahead of time. And they were part of the explanation as we were developing our programs. We did sit down with the associations, the unions, and discuss this with them to get some feedback and to let them know what our process was with some tight timelines. But I would say just the organization of advertising for these positions, looking for people, inviting applicants has been a challenge among some others. But I would say that's certainly been the biggest part of this.
Makes sense. Thank you.
Trustee Simpson, then Trustee Woodard.
My concern during the pandemic has been student engagement and attendance, with some of our students not attending class. Is there anything in any of this criteria that helps pull in some of these students that have had real issues with attendance and therefore are having larger gaps in learning?
Yes, so that through you, Mr. Chair. So that's where locally we're going to depend on, once they have a tutor, they're working either 5 hours during the day or after school, where we will depend locally on the principal and resource teams to identify those students. And I guess we're lucky in some ways where we have this tutoring money. We also have those re-engagement funds, which we presented on in the past, where we're also trying to address those challenges for those students. But certainly, again, given the large scale of this program and this initiative, we will certainly be counting on the local schools to be able to identify those students, and that will be a criteria we'll be encouraging them to look at, one of the criteria.
Trustee Wood?
Thank you, Chair. Through you to the superintendent, and I apologize if I missed this at the beginning, but can you remind us what the provincial envelope of funding is for this program and sort of what available monies we have at a local level to implement this? Perhaps you mentioned it at the beginning and I missed that.
Through you, Mr. Chair. So from April 1st until August 31st, we've been given approximately $1.9 million to spend on tutoring based on those criteria that you've received. We are asked to spend a minimum of 15% of that on community partnerships. And then we have been given a parallel amount, again, from September until December 2022. So it's a large amount of money, and all boards, depending on the size of their board, have been given a similar percentage depending on their enrollment. So it's the same in our boards within the city. They've all received large amounts of fund. I'll say healthy. I used the word healthy, I think, in the presentation, to be able to support students through this tutoring initiative.
Thank you.
Is there any other questions or comments? Trustee Coburn?
Apologize, I should have said it earlier. I just think the point of emphasis that Trustee Moore brought forward with regards to the parents' involvement is key in this. Tutoring in some context can be somewhat of a stigma for students. Having been tutored myself and having a daughter who was tutored, it's really, really important, I think, to involve parents to make sure they have an understanding of it and that they're comfortable with it. That's all. Not a question, but just more of a comment.
Thank you. Trustee Armstrong?
Through you, Mr. Chair, just a bit more on the 15% partnerships. What criteria you have for deciding on these partnerships?
Through you, Mr. Chair, we've been fortunate to have a number of partnerships that existed prior to the actual formal establishment of this tutoring program through the ministry. So we did begin with the groups that we have already been working with, Combit. We've also had a partnership with Canadian Parents for French that we are working with. So we began with those. A number of organizations that are quite savvy and understand that this opportunity exists from the Ministry of Education have also reached out to individual boards as well as our own. So we are currently working with those groups as well to ensure that they meet our expectations in terms of being a provider of tutoring services. So that's all part of the process that we're reviewing right now. But again, we were fortunate to be working with some of these groups ahead of time. So we already had a relationship and partnership with them.
Just to follow up, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
Would there be any opportunity for any new players to?
Can I
point of order,
ask at this time, Trustee Armstrong, is there a conflict of interest through your daily employment with this question?
I would say that I have a point of order on that. I think you're getting into personal territory.
I'm asking if you have a conflict of interest, sir.
I don't think so. No. No, I don't. I don't have a conflict of interest. No. That's an interesting question.
Go ahead, Superintendent.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Again, in terms of the organizations that we're currently working with, we are also working and looking for opportunities to work with others as well.
Thank you.
Is there any other questions or comments? Thank you very much for sorry, Trustee Simpson, is that you stretching or arm going up? Stretching? Our live board meetings much more fun. Thank you for your presentation. Can I have a mover and seconder, please? Trustee Moore, Trustee Coburn. That the memorandum from the Superintendent of Student Success dated April 4, 2022, entitled OCSB Tutoring Support Programs be received. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Item L5, memo from the Associate Director of Education, re-COVID updates. Associate Director Donnie, welcome again. Welcome back.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I'm pleased to bring my COVID-19.
Can't hear you, Mary.
Is that any better?
Lean in.
Is that any better? No.
No, you have to lean right in, I guess.
All right. I haven't changed anything from when I did the student one. Can you hear me now?
You're very low, though.
All right. I will use my teacher
There we
voice.
go.
Is that better?
Yeah.
Okay. This is very strange. It's the same volume. It's a louder volume, but I will speak loudly. That's fine. Then my student.
Isn't technology fun?
It is. So I'm pleased, Mr. Chair, to bring my COVID-19 update to the Board of Trustees. Through you, Mr. Chair, as you know, the provincial government lifted the mask mandate for schools as of March 21st when we returned from March break. We previously shared with trustees a legal opinion indicating that school boards cannot mandate masks when the province has indicated that they should be optional. In cases where a board does mandate masks, it is important to know that this policy cannot be enforced at the school level, creating a potentially difficult situation for principals and all educators in our schools to enforce masks. This would be an extra challenge on our principals who would not have a legal authority to enforce a board mask mandate. The only way that a mask mandate can be enforced in schools is if the province mandated this, or if a public health unit, in our case, Ottawa Public Health, or OPH, made a Section 22 order to this effect. As we all know, we learned yesterday from Ontario's Chief Medical Officer of Health, Dr. Kieran Moore, that mask mandates are not returning. OPH strongly recommends the wearing of masks in schools, and we will continue to share this message with staff, students, and their parents. So I wanted to address the mask mandate, or the lifting of the mask mandate, since I know that was probably one area that I've had the most questions about. A second area that we're looking into, obviously, is the absentee rates. So I just wanted to say that it is really amazing what our staff have accomplished in order to educate students in person despite high absentee rates among staff. So we've reached the point where we've seen a number of schools with increasing absentee rates. And as our trustees, through you, Mr. Chair, all know, we also have an increasing number of failed to fill jobs. So we have situations where we do not have replacement staff. Fortunately, this is being mitigated with the recent hiring of 100 new occasional teachers and other measures. In a small number of cases, to date, only 6 classes, we have had to switch from in-person to virtual learning where possible when we could not safely cover the in-person classes. Fortunately, we have not had to close any schools due to staffing issues. So in summary, I know that this has been difficult for everyone, and I want to take this opportunity to thank our trustees, our staff, especially our principals and vice principals, our parents and guardians, and all those in our community who have worked together to best support our students, their families, and our staff. And Mr. Chair, I would be happy to answer questions that any of the trustees may have with regards to this time.
Thank you. Questions or comments? Trustee Coburn?
Not a question, but a comment. I just want to thank Associate Director Donahue for response. I've had, I'm sure, similar to most of you, a number of inquiries from parents with regards to this, and she's been prompt and direct with the responses, and I'd just like to thank her for that.
Through you, Mr. Chair, appreciate that.
Any other questions or comments? Trustee Whitted?
Thank you, Chair. I'll echo Trustee Coburn's comments and add that I've also received a number of inquiries and messages, I would say on both sides of the issue, frankly, from the residents of Kitchissippi and Bay Wards in particular, which I represent. And, you know, I just want to make it clear, I think as Associate Director Donaghy said, you know, our jurisdiction ends when the province says that we can't do something. And, you know, I think it's important that, you know, we listen to our community, and what I would encourage those who feel strongly about reinstating a mask mandate is to reach out to your members of provincial parliament, reach out to any city councillor who might be part of the Board of Public Health, and let your opinion be known to those decision makers who in fact do have the power and the authority to reinstate a mask mandate in schools. I do think it's unfortunate that we...
Point of order, Mr. Chair. We have a speech going on here. Do we?
I said comments and questions. He's making comments. Wrap it up, though.
As I said, I do think it's... Thank you, Trustee Armstrong. I appreciate it. I'm sure there are a number of folks in your zone that would like to hear from you as well. So I do want to, I just want to thank those who have reached out, and I encourage you to voice your concerns to the appropriate levels of government if you do feel so strongly about that. Thank you.
Trustee Armstrong.
Through you, Mr. Chair. So we have a lot of inquiries on the masks. Must be a reason. Could we have a little bit of a better idea as to the status of our schools in regards to COVID?
Through you, Mr. Chair, can you hear me all right?
Yes.
So through you, Mr. Chair, the province removed the reporting of COVID cases in schools and also changed the process that we had used in terms of contacting tracing. So our local health unit, OPH, no longer has access to the data of COVID. So I'll backtrack. We don't have PCR testing for COVID cases. OPH used that to then contact trace in our schools. And then, as you'll recall, we updated our COVID cases to a dashboard. That's all been removed. And so we do not have any accurate records of the number of cases of COVID. So and again, we've tried as educators to stay in the education lane and refer to OPH for public health and health issues. So I really can't answer the trustee's question. I no longer have numbers of COVID cases in our schools.
Just a second, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
So are we concerned about the staffing shortages? Are we worried that some of our schools will become very understaffed to the point where we need to look at other options?
So through you, Mr. Chair, that is always a concern. And as I said in my report, we have only had to close 6 in-person classes to date. So we are doing very well. Our staff have done an amazing job. We have just hired 100 new occasional teachers, which has really helped for the absentee rates. We've also used other measures and continue to do that. They've been mentioned earlier tonight in other presentations. Classroom supervisors, recently graduated or almost graduated Faculty of Education students. So it is always a concern, but right now we are managing it quite well.
Good to hear. Thank you.
Trustee Moore.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. Associate Director Donaghy, I want to say thank you very much for the work you've done over the 2 years, and specifically tonight for answering the questions that I'd asked you about masks. I want to get a little bit more into when classes are closed, even though it's only 6. I'm wondering if you could illuminate a little on the process and when parents are notified so that we would all have an idea of the timelines involved.
Excellent question through you, Mr. Chair. The process is that the principal needs permission of the superintendent, who needs permission of me. So I would be aware as associate director and approving the closing of any class. One of the criteria used is that we do have to have enough time to notify families, especially with the young children, for childcare purposes. So they would usually find out the day before. So if possible, the afternoon before, maybe early into the evening. So we would not be closing classes, or we have not had to yet, on the day of. It would be for the following day.
Supplemental,
Go
Mr.
ahead.
Chair? I was just going to ask about before and after school childcare for those students. Would they be exempted from that, or would it be, I guess it gets confusing, doesn't it?
Well, I am embarrassed to say through you, Mr. Chair, I have not had that question or thought of that yet. So I will have to follow up on that one. But basically, if the parents needed the before school care, they would have to pick their child up if there wasn't the classroom to go into, but they would know that ahead of time.
Okay.
I'm not aware of any of those situations yet, but I will certainly look into that.
Okay, thank you.
I just want to add one comment. The director and I were on a conference call with Minister Lessie from 3:30 to 4 this afternoon, and he made it abundantly clear to all the chairs and directors in the province of Ontario that they do not have the right to mandate students or staff wearing masks in schools in Ontario. Mr. Director, you got anything to add to that?
I guess one point that the data is showing so far, there's been 2 out of 4,800 schools closed due to COVID since the March break. So it is happening, but as mentioned by the chair of the board, it is outside of our scope. So we will continue to do the best we can to keep our schools open. And if we do have to close either it's school classes or schools, we will do that and we'll keep the trustees up to date.
Thank you. The one thing that was discussed further on that call is the one thing that our board can do is highly recommend that the parents make the decision that their child wears a mask, that they do that, we are highly recommending that they make that decision and that masks should be worn. Or sorry, they have the option to wear the mask. Pardon me? Is there any other questions? Thank you very much. Trustee Simpson.
Are we planning any kind of communication home to parents to state that, that very message?
So through you, Mr. Chair, I can speak to that. We are planning that and we have in the past. So what we have always done is that all medical information and advice has come from Ottawa Public Health, and all education decisions have come through the school board, through myself, the trustees, superintendents, and principals. So we will continue to amplify the OPH messages, and I'll be working with our communications team to do that on all our social media channels. Every time there's a new statement that comes out, we put that out, but we also have some ideas of how we can get the message that our chair just spoke about out to all of our families and staff.
Okay, can I have a mover to receive the report, please? Trustee DeKemp and Trustee Lawrence. That the memorandum from the Associate Director of Education dated April 6, 2022, entitled COVID Updates be received. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you very much, Mary. No new business. No notice of motions. Confirmation of the action report of March 8th, 2022. Mover, please. Trustee Simpson and Trustee Armstrong. The action report covering the period of March 8th, 2022 be received. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. The action. Get the auction. I'm getting some feedback here. That the action report covering the period of March 29th be received. Can I have a mover, please? Trustee Moore and Trustee Warren. That the action report for a period of March 29th be received. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. There's no inquiries. Is there any administrative announcements?
Yes, Mr. Chair. On behalf of the executive team, I'd like to wish you and all the trustees a blessed Holy Week and a healthy and joy-filled happy Easter. Also next week, we don't have a board meeting, but many of the trustees will be gathering for the annual OCSTA AGM. We're pleased that Ottawa will be serving as the host city and welcoming Catholic trustees from across the province, including hosting a mass at the Basilica, celebrated by His Grace Archbishop Danfus. So I want to pass it on and wish each of you a happy Easter.
Thank you very much. Same to you and your family. Can I have someone move adjournment, please? Trustee Coburn and Trustee Whitted. At 8:52, that the regular board meeting of April 12th, 2022 be adjourned at 8:52 p.m. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. That's it. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.